Ladles and jelly spoons, welcome back to Badgerworks. Today, this. These are a couple of little scientist fellows, and today we're going to try and recreate our ill-fated water effects video. So, let's get on with it. Yes, so long-time viewers of the channel may remember that a little while ago I had a bit of a disaster. I made a video on doing water effects and how to do like basic water effects, and I had a bit of a catastrophe and I lost the footage, so I couldn't make the video, which I was very annoyed about, as you can imagine. And I did a second video of the USS Missouri firing a broadside to give a different flavour, which I'll put a link to wherever it is up here. So there's that. But I was just sitting here the other day and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to do it again. I'm just going to recreate that diorama. And I'm also going to make some improvements. So I just wanted to show you, first of all, what we've got and how we're going to go about doing this. So these are our intrepid scientists, Fred and Charlie, and they're about to make the discovery of a lifetime, spoilers. And we're going to make a nice little diorama for them to sit on. So let me show you the box, first of all, and how we're going to what we're going to use for this. So a while back, I designed this enclosure for dioramas, for small dioramas. And the basis, it's very dusty. The basis behind this is, well, several-fold. So you can just use this top part, which you can either use this way up, which we're going to do with ours, to, you know, put stuff in, or you can turn it up the other way and just have a nice flat base. You also have this bottom part, which this fits on like that, so it will give you a bit more height. And this one is designed with a flat plate that you can put like a nameplate or something on like that. I also designed another version of this that has holes in it for a switch and a charging circuit. So that's all good. Now, one of the problems with this is when you look at this, you can see it's faceted, you can see the layer lines from the printing and everything. So I have to sand this and paint it and all the rest of it, and it's not ideal. So I did something different with this one. And so for this one, we're going to use this. Now you'll notice immediately this has a textured finish. I'll show you them side by side. And this is something that I think is fairly new in 3D printing. I only found out about it recently. But this is called fuzz. No great surprise. And what it does is you can see now, looking at this, there are no layer lines. All of those facets have disappeared. This one has the holes in it, by the way. We'll get to those in a minute. But you can see that looks much, much better. And it means I basically don't have to put any finish on this if I don't want to. I may still paint it black and put some finish on it. But the thing is, you don't have to if you don't want to. Now, I will try, if I remember, to put a little bit in here about how to set up this fuzz. I know it's available in Orca Slicer, I know it's available in Prusa Slicer, and although don't ask me how to do it because I don't use those slices, I use Cura, and it is also available in the latest version of Cura. It's listed under experimental and it is literally called fuzz. Let me show you quickly, if I can, in the software where it is. Right, so here we are in Cura. This is 5.9.0. And you can see I've already got the fuzzy selected here, or the fuzzy skin in my settings, but I'll show you how to do it. If you just go up to Preferences, Configure Cura, go to Settings, and then under the filter, if you just start typing fuzz, then it will show up under Experimental. So just check this top box. I find it helps to have the other ones as well, but just check the top box and that will make it appear over here. So once you have it there, you can just click on this to enable it. And there are your various settings. So I have mine set so that it does it on the outside only. And then these are the settings that I use. These have worked perfectly fine for me. I don't see any reason to change them. So you just enable that and you can have nice fuzzy prints. Right, so now we've done that. Now we've got our box. So inside the box here, as you see, we've got holes for charging circuit and switch. So I've got here my charging circuit. This is the one I always use. You've seen me use these before. This basically sits on top of this little platform, and it has a little peg at the back so that it can't push backwards, so that when you push the wire in, you're not pushing the whole thing back. And that sits very nicely like that. Now, you can get more modern ones of these. I've got one here. This is basically the same charging circuit, but as you can see, it has a USB-C rather than a micro USB. And that fits exactly the same way. It just pops in the hole like that, and sits in the same place. The board is exactly the same. You use it in exactly the same way. The only difference is it has a USB-C connector instead of a micro USB. So you can use either of those. So there's that. For our switch, we'll be using this little rocker switch, and that will just clip into that hole there. I'm not going to clip it in now because I don't want to put it in yet, but that will just clip in like that. And then we are going to be creating some lighting effects using this, or a couple of these. This is a flickering blue LED. Let me show you this, how it works. So we pop that in there, we pop that in there, and you see that flickers. And we'll get more onto this in a minute. But what we're going to do first of all is we are going to paint our intrepid little figures, and then we're going to work on the base. So let's get started on these guys. Right. This is, I've never tried doing this before, but we'll see how it works. It's a bit of a weird view of the workshop, I know, but what I've done is I have given our two little chaps a coat of grey primer, our normal high coat grey primer. And now what I'm going to do is do some zenithal highlighting. So I've got here some high coat white primer, and I'm going to hit this from the top. And I thought I'd try and get it on camera if I can. So I'm just going to tip this up like this, and basically just like that, you see. And hopefully you can see how that has highlighted him from the top. There's also a bit of fluff on there I need to get rid of, but we'll worry about that in a minute. So there, that's basically what it looks like. And I'll show you the other one as well. And as you can see, that has highlighted those very nicely. So what we will do now is we'll start putting some colour on them. Right, now the primer is all dry. We're going to make a start on this, and we're going to start by giving them both of them a coat of XF3 flat yellow. All right, there we go. Now the next thing we're going to do is apply a coat of this clear yellow X24, and this is going to kind of act as like a glaze and a wash at the same time, but you'll see when I put it on. Hang on. Blimey, that's loud. Good grief. Anyway, so what we do is we just put this on, and we want to put it on quite heavy. Heavier than that. And just cover the whole thing. And we want it, you see the way it's settling into the grooves? And that will basically give us our shadows. So we just go over the whole thing. And just let this settle where it will. But you see how it's settling into all the grooves? Or into the, you know, the recesses. All right, there we go. We'll let that dry and carry on from there. Right, and for the boots and gloves and all that kind of bits and pieces, we're going to use this Citadel Snot Green. This is a really old bottle. I have no idea what Snot Green is called now, but I'm sure there's an equivalent. Right. It's actually, I don't know if you can see that on the bottom of his feet. Those are the remains of the supports. And I was going to file them off, and then I decided to leave them because it reminded me of the old NBC suits we used to have in the army. They had like rubber over boots that had a very aggressive grip on the tread, on the sole, so that you wouldn't slip over when you were wearing them. So it's I can't remember what was it, 95 pattern? I can't remember now. If any of you were in, put a comment. I'm sure it was 95 pattern. Survive to fight and all that stuff, which was the army version of protect and survive, but the army one actually made sense. There's a film actually on the subject while I'm doing this called When the Wind Blows, and it was made by Raymond Briggs. It's an animated film. Now, if the name Raymond Briggs sounds familiar, he's the guy that did The Snowman. Very famous animation. But he did this film called When the Wind Blows, and it was basically done in that same animation style, but it was more aimed at adults, and it's basically about an old couple who live in like rural England somewhere, and there's a nuclear attack on the country, and they try and follow the protect and survive, and it's futile. And but it's just the thing is, it was something like, at the time they did this thing because it was like, well, you know, we have to do something, but it was just, none of it was any good. But anyway, that's beside the point. Let's not get too depressing. Right, there we go for that. Oh, I think I'll do his mask as well. This should be fun. No, actually, we'll do that a different colour, I think. So there we go for the green. I'll do his face next, his goggles and mask and whatnot. Right, for his goggles, I'm going to use this Vallejo fluorescent red, which might be a bit leery, but we'll see how it goes. I'm hoping it won't cover that well because it's the Model Air, so it's the thin stuff. Yeah, I think this will work. It'll act more like a glaze than a coating, and it will just give it an orange tint. Oh, glasses are falling off my nose. Yeah, that looks all right. Yeah, that looks all right. So I'm going to do his mask as well, but we're going to use the same colour we do his mask. We're going to use as a dry brush on the rest of it, so we'll do that too. And for the dry brushing and highlighting, we're going to use our old friend XF55 Deck Tan. We don't want to go mad with this. We just want to hit it very, very lightly and just pick up the highlights on the suit. I don't even know if you'll be able to see it. It is doing it, but it's a very, very subtle effect, but it is making a difference. I genuinely don't know if you'll be able to see that, but hopefully you can. I'm going to do his mask the same colour as well. Right, and for his case, I'm going to use this Citadel Abaddon black. I'm never sure how to pronounce that. I think it's Abaddon, but anyway, that's what we're using. Right, there we go for that. We'll do some highlights on that in silver as well, and we'll also do his goggles, and then I think we'll be pretty much done with these figures. And for those silver highlights, we're going to use this Citadel chainmail, which I believe is now called Bolter or something like that. I'm not sure. And my son's turned up. Say hello, Michael.
Hello, Michael.
What are you after?
Just came to see what you're doing.
I am painting.
I see.
Usually you come up because you have something exciting to tell me, but
Currently.
okay. All right.
Bye then.
Oh, you're off then.
Yep.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Right. Well, there you go. A swift visit from my son there, but right. Anyway, I'll get the rest of these bits done, and then I think we'll be almost done with these figures. Right, I think that'll do for that. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a coat of matte lacquer just to basically knock all that shine off. And I think then we can get on with the rest of the diorama. Right, so now we can move on to the base. So I've just given this a spray of some matte lacquer just to knock the shine off it. That was all. And what I'm going to do is figure out what's going to go where. So this is going to be one of our illuminated rocks. And I just wanted to mention, this is the original size of it. And that was the size I used in the original diorama, but I decided I wanted to try and make it a little bit bigger, a bit more obvious. So I just scaled it up to 150%. But these came from a set that I got from somewhere. Colts 3D, I think. If I remember, I'll put a link in the description to where this set of scatter came from. And there's also this one here, which is also that's also been scaled up. I think the original was that size. So again, this has some patterns in it, but you'll see what we're going to do with those later. I've got the camera overhead because I'm going to be doing some mixing in a minute, and I don't want the camera in the way. So basically we're going to have like that there, and then we'll just put in some various bits of scatter just around, just to give us a bit of interest, sort of like so. So I just want to roughly put the bits where I want them. Right, we're going to put that there. Put that one over there. And some of these are just mirrored, so it doesn't really matter. I might even leave that one out, actually. So something like that. And then we'll have one figure standing here and one figure standing here. But the reason I've done this is because what I need to do now is make the base for this. So I want to get these where they're going to be so that I know where to put them in a minute. So I shall put these out for a second, roughly in order. So I know where they go. And you'll see why in a minute. So these have just been sprayed with black primer, and then I went over them with some grey primer, but they're going to get painted again as well. Now, what I'm going to do is make up this base. Now, some of you may be familiar with a substance called sculptor mould, which is something that's very, very popular for diorama making, things like that. And I'm going to show you where you can make your own cheap version. So, first of all, we have this. This is toilet paper. It's just the cheapest stuff I could find in the pound shop. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a few sheets of this. I think probably 3 or 4 will be more than enough. I've got a plastic cup here. Let's put that to one side for a minute. And what we're going to do is we're going to rip this paper up into here. It doesn't need to be anything precious. They don't need to be too small. You don't need to shred it. You'll see some people will make this stuff on, you know, on YouTube and stuff, and they'll literally powder this paper. You don't need to do that. This is something I saw someone else doing, and it was just like, it's so simple, and it works great. I've used it several times before, and it works a treat. So, but let me just rip these bits up. Right, there we go. That's probably way too much, but it doesn't matter. Now we're going to add some of this. This is plaster of Paris. This came from Hobbycraft, but you can get it anywhere. You can get it online quite cheap, but I bought this from Hobbycraft because I was in there. So we'll put a couple of spoonfuls of that in. Doesn't need a massive amount. I'll do this bag back up because we don't want it getting moisture in it because it will dry out. Right, and now we have a suitable stirring device, and what we're going to do is add a bit of water to this. That's probably way too much. It'll either be way too much or not nearly enough, and then we just mix it, and we just keep mixing it basically until the paper dissolves. We might need to put a bit more plaster in that. Oh, covered in it now. But just mush it around until the paper basically turns into pulp. And what this toilet paper is, it's basically just filler. So you're not using as much of the plaster. And also it gives it some texture. But you can see that paper is now starting to dissolve in the water, and it's turning into like a sludge. So I'll just give this a bit more of a mix. And then the plaster, when it dries, will basically hold it all together. This is a little bit wet. I could probably do with putting a little bit more. Might put a bit more plaster in there, but we'll see how it goes. I think it'll be all right. Right, let's pop a little bit more plaster in there. So you have to be careful with this, because sometimes if you put too much plaster in, it dries really fast. That's a bit more like it. Right, now Now bring this back in. And we'll just scoop some of this in. And we want to do this in a couple of layers, because I want to put in just a base layer first, just to give us like the bottom, and then we're going to build it up a little bit in places. So let's just spread this around a bit. I'll just basically just smudge this around a bit, because I don't want this bottom layer too thick, but I do want it to cover the whole base. Right, like that. And don't worry too much if you get any on the sides, you can always just paint over it again afterwards. Right, there we go. And now we want to build this up a little bit. This is a little bit runny, really. I could have made this a little bit thicker, but it's all right. Spread this out a little bit. This is going to take a long time to dry, unfortunately, but it's fine. Right, that should do us. Now, we'll just pop that there for a second, and we'll pop that there for a second, like that, because we need to take these ones off again. But the rest, it's more just to center everything up so that it's everything's in the right place. So we'll put that one there. That goes there. These ones will stay here. So this is why I'm kind of just working them down into the plaster a little bit so that they stay put. Like that. That goes there. Right, like that. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit this with a hairdryer just to dry it off a little bit. Then I'm going to take these pieces back off before this sets. So I'll do that and then we'll come back and see what we're going to do next. Right, So while that's drying, we're going to do some work on these two stones here, because at the moment, as you can see, the light doesn't shine through them. So what we want to do is clean out all those little grooves so that the light can shine through. And I've got a variety of tools to do this with. I've got a couple of drills here of different sizes, and obviously I've got more as well. I've also got these picks that I got. Funnily enough, these actually came from AliExpress, and they're actually designed to remove blackheads. So but they're it's a good little set. I'll show you the whole set one day, but it's a great little set, but they'll be useful for doing this kind of thing. So like, for example, here we can just get in here with this drill, and all we want to do is just go in like that, you see, and clean out the paint. And now if I pop this light back in, and you'll see that the light now shines through like that, you see. So I will get on and do the rest of these, and then I'll show you what they look like when they're done. But as I say, it's just a question of using the various tools and picks just to get in here and just very gently scrape away the paint. Like that. And so again, if I plug that in, you can see that now glows blue. So let me get on and do the rest of these, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Right, so I've finished cleaning these up, and I'll just give you a quick demonstration of what they look like. So there's that one, and there's that one. So what we can do now is put these on the base. Oh, actually, before I do that, I'll show you this set quickly that I was talking about. Like I said, this came from AliExpress, and it's basically designed to, well, pick spots, which is, from what I understand, not recommended. From what I gather, most dermatologists will tell you not to do that unless you get it done by a professional, but there you go. But I say there are a number of like picks. So there's that hook, and it's got a little bit on the end. And this is the one I was just using. So that's a spike with, again, a little thing on the end. But the other thing I thought these would be useful for is for my daughter when she's doing her sculpting. They might be useful for that as well, because there's lots of little bits like this that have these little, you know, and these are quite firm. They're quite hard metal, so they work quite well. But there's also, the other reason I got this is there's 3 pairs of tweezers in here. And these are, as you can see, very, very fine nosed tweezers. And I thought they might be useful for doing things like photo etch or for handling little tiny parts. So there's a straight one. There's these angled ones, like right angled ones. And then there's also another set here, which are like a 45-degree, but they're very, very fine tweezers. And I thought they might actually be useful, like I said, for doing things like photo etch and stuff like that. So that's why I got this set. But yeah, it was quite cheap and it arrived very quickly as well. Funnily enough, I've actually had some emails from AliExpress saying, do you want to do sponsored content? It's like, kind of tempted, but probably won't. Anyway, that's beside the point. Let's put those away. So what we need to do now, this is not completely dry yet, but it's dried enough to work with. As you can see, I've drilled a couple of little pilot holes, and what we need to do is drill some 5mm holes through this for the LEDs. So let me find a 5mm drill. Right, I've got a 5mm drill, and I've just got a little scrap of MDF here just to act as a backer so I don't drill into the bench. Now, do you know what? I might do this with the drill. What could possibly go wrong? Let me get the drill, hang on a minute. Right, this is not the ideal place to be doing this. I'll do the other one off camera because that's really awkward doing it in front of the camera. But there you go. So I drilled the hole. I'll clean that up and then we'll pop the lights through and see what they look like. Right, so I've just popped those two pieces in place. And if I just put that through the hole in the bottom there, you see that one's working all right. There is a bit of light bleeding through on the side, so I'll have to fill that, but that's easy enough. And we'll do the one at the back there. You see that one looks all right. So what we'll do now is let this, I'll glue these down with some PVA, and then we'll basically let this dry and then we'll paint it. Right, this has had time to dry now. It's looking good. And I've just mixed up some grey here. This is acrylic, and it's a mix of this PBO neutral grey and some Daleroni Payne's grey. I mean, you could just use black, it's fine, but it's just to get it somewhere near the same colour as these rocks. And so I've also thinned this down with some water, and this is going to give us our first layer of paint. So we just want to put this on all over and give it a nice coat of this, and it will soak in a bit because obviously we're painting it onto quite a porous surface, but that's why I've mixed up quite a lot of it. But just put it on. We just want to cover the whole thing. Now when it comes to the rocks, you can of course just paint straight over the top of them like this, but obviously don't go over the ones that we've cleaned out the the designs on, otherwise it will cover them up again. So those ones we just want to go up to the edge of. That's why I've tried to get this colour as close as I can to the original. But I'll get on and do the rest of this, and then we'll go on from there. Right, now that's had a chance to dry a little bit, I've just made a wash with the same Payne's grey. Again, you could just use black. And I'm going to put this on. Now, I'm not quite sure how this is going to work, so I'm going to apply it to the bottom down here first, because then if it doesn't work the way I want it to, it won't really matter. But I think we're going to be all right, actually. I just want to give it a bit of contrast, that's all. So I think what I'll do is I'll apply it a little bit heavier down at the bottom, because this is where the water is going to be. Because yes, we are getting to some water effects eventually. That's actually the next thing after this dries. But yeah, that looks all right. And so what we'll do now is we'll apply it again just a little bit lighter on the top here. So we'll let this dry, and then we'll give it a little bit of a dry brush with the light grey, and then we'll start on our water effects. Right, now let's do a bit of dry brushing. So again, this is just the neutral grey. And we're just going to hit this very, very lightly, just to pick up some edges. Right, I think that'll do us. So the next thing we want to do is attach the figures, and then we can start thinking about putting some water on this thing. Right, so put a little drop of super glue on the end of this. Pop that in there like that. And then we'll cut this down. Like that. And put a bit of super glue on his feet, a bit on there. And then push that into the base like that. And that's one. Now for the other one. And then that one goes like that. There we go. Right, we'll let those dry, and then we can put some resin on this. Right, time to mix some resin. So I'm using this, this is Creative Liquid Craft Resin. So this is a polyurethane resin. It's actually pretty good stuff. The only thing I'm not overly keen on is the bottle, because it has a very wide neck, but that's all right. Just makes it a little bit awkward to pour, but we'll manage. So that's the part B. And now we'll put in some part A. And you should measure this really, but I'm just going to eyeball it. That looks about right. And I'm also going to put in some of this blue dye or pigment, which is not doing very well, this pigment. It's quite old. One of the offspring has just arrived. Oh, it's Michael. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Michael.
Right, we'll just give this a good thorough mix. This is far too cold to be doing resin, really. But we'll manage. This resin has a curing time of like 24 hours. And the working time is like 8 hours or something stupid. It'll probably take a lot longer because it's so cold. I say it's really far too cold to be working with resin, but we'll do what we can. Right, let's get this.
done this one?
Yeah, but I lost the footage, so I'm doing it again. But I've also made some improvements.
Okay.
Right, so we'll just work the resin in to where we want it. We'll just tip this up and let it pour down. You can see how gloopy it is. It's really far too cold to be working with resin, but we'll manage like we always do. Right. And we'll just let that level up a bit. Probably do with a little bit more in there actually. Just put a little touch more in. That's probably way too much. So we will now let this cure for the requisite time. It says 24 hours. It might take longer than that, but we'll leave this to cure and then we'll add some further effects. Right, so this resin has not cured yet. It's not been nearly long enough, but I've had it, I actually came up with an idea to help it cure a bit quicker. And what I've actually done is put it on the bed of the filament printer, which I've set to heat at 28 degrees, and then put a tub over it to keep the air in. So it has gelled quite nicely. And what that means is I can make a start on doing the electronics. So we'll get that out of the way, and then we can do that while we're waiting for the resin to cure. So what I have done, and I can turn this upside down, is I have put the two LEDs in like that, and you can see I've kind of got the wires touching like that. And what I want to do now, I've got to be very careful how I do this, like that, is I want to solder these LEDs together so that they stay in the right place. So we'll just put a little bit of soldering paste on each of these. And what we'll do is just solder these LEDs together. Like that. And now I can take these out carefully. Like that, you see. I'll go and put this back under the heater and it can stay, you know, curing. Right, that's done. So I've got a few extra bits here. So what we need to do is get my helping hand, wherever that is. There it is. Come here. This is a helping hand. If you don't have one of these, get one. They're really useful, especially for soldering and things like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our charging circuit and we're going to attach some wires. In fact, actually, no, we'll do the battery first. Let's just put that to one side for a minute. So we need to strip a couple of these wires. So what I've got here is a it's a 13300 lithium polymer battery, 3.7 volt, 360 milliamp hour. This came out of a certain device that begins with V that I will not mention because I'll get demonetized by YouTube. But there you go. There's a video I've got on TikTok which shows you how to harvest these batteries and save yourself a bunch of money. So what we want to do is just desolder these wires off of here. He says, failing miserably to desolder that wire. There we go. There we go. Just get that out of the way before I burn my fingers on it. And actually. I was just thinking of an easy way of doing this. If I just hold that like that. There you go. Much easier way. Oh, get off. And now we want to solder these wires on. That's that one. And that's that one. Right, now we can solder it onto the charging board. So we'll just strip the ends of these wires, and obviously we need to be careful not to let these touch now, because obviously they're live because they're connected to the battery. It won't do it any harm, but you know, no point taking a chance. So on these charging circuits, and I have used these before, but I'll go through it again anyway for anybody who's not seen it. What you have is 4 connections. So you've got out positive, battery negative, out negative. So you connect your battery to the 2 inner connectors, and then you connect whatever you want to actually power to the outer ones. So in this case, we need to connect our positive battery wire here, and our negative battery here, and once again a bit of soldering paste. That, and like that, and we'll do the top as well because it creates a better connection. And there we go. So that is our basic charging circuit complete. Now we need to attach a live and a negative. So we put this in our out positive. And we put this on our out negative. And again, what we have to remember now is that these are live. Which is why I haven't trimmed the other ends yet. Do the other side again. Right, now we need to put that to one side for a second, and we need to turn our attention to the switch. So, because there's not going to be a lot of room in here once we put all this together, so we have to be a little bit careful. So we're going to put this through our switch like that. And again, soldering paste. And solder. Okay, so now we get our base, and this is where it starts redecorating our house with the letterbox. So I've got here a little double-sided sticky pad, and we're going to put this on our charging circuit like that. And that is so when we put this in here, it will stay put. So pop that into the hole and stick it down like that. And now we take our switch and we pop that in like that. And we take this, the live out, positive out, and we attach that to the switch. Just bend that round. Like that. Solder that on there. And now we strip our negative as well. And we take our light, or lights, I should say. Now you might say at this point, how can you tell which is positive and which is negative? Well, one of the nice things they do with LEDs is, and I hope you can see this, but if you look on the right hand side here, you'll see it's flat. The flat side on the LED is always the negative cathode, or yeah, cathode. Is it anode? Anode is positive, cathode is negative. Well, it's the negative side anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to trim these down a bit. Just snip those off. And we can solder this up. Right. So let's just drop that down a bit. Right, so this one goes on this side. Oh, where are my glasses? Where are my glasses? What have I done with them? Oh, there they are. Oh dear. Right. So we put that on there. And solder that. And then we put our positive on t'other side. There we go. And so now, if I turn this switch on, these should light up. Which they do. Hurrah! So, there we go. And then that will basically go like so. And what we're also going to do is use another sticky pad just to stick this battery down, just so it doesn't rattle around in there. So we'll just pop that on the underside of there. And we'll just curve that around and stick it down there. And there we go. That's our electronics all done. So now, once the diorama is done, all we've got to do is pop these lights back in, put it on, and we're finished. So, but until then, once the resin is fully cured, then we can finish off the water effects and we'll be done. Simple. Right, now we can return to our water effects, or make a start on the water effects. This resin still hasn't fully cured, but it's gelled over, which means I can get on, because I want to get this stuff on that we're going to do next, because it takes a long time to dry. And what we're going to use is this. This is Winsor & Newton Heavy Structured Gel. And this stuff is like magic. Because basically what it does, let me show you it. Hang on. So you can see it's this paste. And what it does is it just stays wherever you put it. It's brilliant. Let me show you. So you can put it on with a brush, a palette knife, your fingers, a toothpick, anything you like. I'm going to use a toothpick to start with. But basically what we do is we just scoop some up and we put it down on our model like so. And what I want to do is create like splashes around his feet. So it's like he's walking through the water. But what this does, this gel, is it just stays wherever you put it. You can see already where I've put it there, it's not slumped down or started to run or anything like that. It just stays where you put it. Which means for things like this, it's absolutely perfect. If you want to create splashes, bow waves on ships, things like that, it's absolutely perfect. So this will nicely demonstrate our young chap here wandering through the water. I'll put some around his other foot as well. Now, the problem is with this stuff, and it's not really a problem, but one of the things you need to consider, I should say, with this stuff, is it does take a long time to cure. It will skin over really quick, but it takes a while to fully cure. And also it cures clear, which is good and bad. I mean, it would be nice if it just stayed white like this, because that's basically what I want it to do in this case, but it's also quite handy that it dries clear, so you can use it for all sorts. And all I do is I paint it with white oil paint. I've got to be careful doing this. Like I say, this resin hasn't actually fully cured yet, so it's still a bit squidgy. Right, let's get some down that side of his foot. What we want to do is just put it on first, and then what we'll do is we'll come in and we'll shape it. And if necessary, we'll build it up a bit more. But now we've got it on there, what we can do is just come in with the cocktail stick and just kind of just tease it like that, and you see that it just stays where you put it. So it makes this very nice, very realistic looking, like splashes of him walking through the water. Just like that, you see. And I say it's great for things like this, but as I said, you can use it for things like bow waves on ships. I think I did it on the Missouri build. If you go and look at that, it's the same thing, and it looks very realistic. I also did it on the on a bigger ship, so the Queen Elizabeth battleship that I did a long time ago. When I did the base for that, I did the same thing there. So you can build it up quite a lot, and obviously you can build it up, let it cure, and then build it up again. I also used it to make fire. So the Indiana Jones diorama that I did a while back, the torch on that was also made by just taking an LED and covering it in this stuff, and that, where it dried clear, was really handy because it meant I didn't have to do anything to it. So whereas there are times when you'd like it, like when you're doing something like this, you'd like it to dry, you know, to stay, you know, white. It's actually more useful for it to dry clear. So there you go. So we'll leave that now. We'll put that back in the heater, and let it carry on cooking. But now this can be curing at the same time as the resin. But that's hopefully giving you an idea of how to deal with this stuff. Right, so now we've got that paint on, we're going to add some ripples, and we're going to do that using this Mod Podge gloss. So I'll just squeeze some out onto a little bit of cardboard just to make it easier to deal with. And what we'll do is just use an old brush and just get some on the brush like this, and then we'll just create some ripples like this. And obviously you can do them however you want, but if you just go all over the whole thing with this, and you'll end up with a nice ripple effect. I should mention you can also do this if you want to using like UV resin. So you can put it on and then just cure it with a torch. You can buy little bottles of UV resin with like dropper, just like squeezy tops. So you can do it with that as well. But that I think works better for sort of larger scales than this. Whereas I think with this, at this sort of small scale, you probably have a little bit more control over it with the brush. And again, the same as the structure gel, this will dry completely clear. So it will give you a nice little ripple effect on the water. So we'll just go over the whole thing like this. Then I'll put it back under the heater to get it to dry a bit quicker. And we'll see what it looks like. Right, so that Mod Podge just dried, and as you see, it gives us a nice ripple effect on the water. So the only thing we've got left to do now is put this on the base. So all we need to do is line up the LEDs with the holes, and pop those in, pop that on the base, and there it is done. So I think we can wrap this up.
This is astonishing. Truly a discovery for the ages. Who would have thought, buried deep in this labyrinth underground, untouched by human hands for countless millennia, would lead to a discovery that will change everything? Well, that's all well and good, Charlie, but what I want to know is, why do I always have to carry all the heavy stuff, eh? And on top of that, I think my suit's leaking. Frederick, you are wearing a Class 4 hazard suit. It does not leak. Is that right? Well, then you tell me, how come I can feel my socks getting wet, eh? You tell me that. Oh, good grief.
So here is our finished article. I hope you enjoyed that little escapade of our intrepid but somewhat bumbling scientists, Fred and Charlie, as they make yet another discovery of a lifetime. But yeah, I'm very pleased with how this came out. Obviously, I did something similar to this before, and it didn't, I lost all the footage. It was, you know, my mistake. But it actually did allow me to recreate this diorama and make some changes, which I think have improved it. So yeah, hopefully this has taught you a little something about how to make ripples and splashes and things like that you can use in your own dioramas. If you want to see any more adventures from Fred and Charlie, then let me know in the comments. I'll see what I can do. But in the meantime, I'd like to thank my top tier patrons, Howard, Amy and Hawaii Clive O, for their continued support. And I will see you all in the next video. Thanks very much for watching. Cheers. Bye.